Hi, welcome to another midweek message. In John chapter 4, verse 23 beginning, Jesus said, "True worshipers worship the Father in spirit and truth. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truth." Truth. Not by our own whims or the whims of men, not by our own emotional leanings or personal preferences. But worship that pleases God must be according to His standard of revealed truth. And so, in the matters of worship, we must go to the law and to the testimony, Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20. We have to get back to the Bible and find out what the Bible has to say. If we're going to worship God acceptably, it's imperative that we worship God on the day that He has appointed. In Acts chapter 2, the apostles preached the gospel of Jesus Christ on the day of Pentecost. For the first time, Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection was proclaimed. On that day, 3,000 souls obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ in the waters of baptism and were added to the church. Acts chapter 2 marks the beginning of the Messianic kingdom, the establishment of the Lord's church, and that happened on the first day of the week. And from that point forward, those who were Christians continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine, in fellowship, the breaking of bread, and prayers, according to Acts chapter 2, verse 42. Later in Acts chapter 20, while Paul was on his third preaching journey, making haste to return to the city of Jerusalem, he stopped in Troas. And there, the disciples gathered on the first day of the week to break bread, that is, to observe the Lord's Supper. When Paul wrote to the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 1 and 2, he gave them instructions, as he had previously given instruction to the churches of Galatia, that when they assembled on the first day of the week, they were to lay by and store. That is, they were to bring their free will contributions to support the work of the local church and the advancement of the gospel elsewhere. All of these things have one thing in common. The early Christians assembled for the purpose of worship on the first day of the week. The first day carries its significance because it is the day that Jesus rose from the dead. The tomb was approached early in the morning hours on the first day of the week and was found to be empty. And so, Jesus established the first day of the week as the preeminent day designated by God for the collective worship of His people. It's true that worship is not limited to the first day of the week. We can worship on any day individually or even in groups. But it is the first day of the week that is mandated in Scripture. It is that example that we have in the New Testament. And there are specific activities or expressions of worship that are assigned to the first day of the week and only to the first day. And we'll explore those in a future midweek message. The first day of the week. This marked a significant change from the Old Testament to the New. Prior to the New Testament, prior to the establishment of the church, the Lord's kingdom in Acts chapter 2, the Sabbath, that is the seventh day of the week, had been appointed for the Jews to keep as their day of rest and worship. But Nehemiah chapter 9 tells us plainly that it was to the Jews, it was to Israel that God revealed His holy Sabbath. It was a part of their law. And that law, given at Mount Sinai, inscribed on stone, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, that law was nailed to the cross, according to Colossians chapter 2. And in Colossians chapter 2, we're told plainly that was nailed to the cross according to Colossians 2, verse 14. And as a consequence, verse 16, let no one act as your judge in regard to, notice, a Sabbath day. Sabbath had its place according to the Old Testament law given to Israel. It was their day of rest and worship, and there were consequences for neglecting it. But that law was nailed to the cross of Jesus Christ, and replacing the Sabbath day as the day of collective worship for Christians is the first day of the week. That's the pattern of the New Testament. And if we're going to get back to the Bible, if we're going to appeal to the law and to the testimony for our worship, if we're going to worship in spirit and truth, we'll uphold the first day of the week as the Lord's day. Thanks so much for watching.